Hi, I'm Rick Anthony, and welcome to the Someone You Should Know podcast, the podcast that focuses on musicians, authors, and interesting people. We like to say we're making a difference one artist at a time. So sit back, have a cold one, and get ready to meet someone you should know.
Hello and welcome back to the Storyteller studio. This is Tim Larson. We are on the road again, and today was a little tougher being on the road than normal. We're in Merrillville, Indiana, and we drove through Chicago with all kinds of pouring rain on a January day that was about 32 to 34 degrees. So it was not comfortable, but we made it anyway to Maxim's Diner. My guest today has a story between the two of us that lasts maybe 10 minutes. And his name is Rick Anthony, and you drove over to Merrillville to meet me.
Yeah, actually did. We're about 45 minutes to the east here, over in beautiful Wanata, as we call it, Wanata, Indiana, where they actually count livestock as voting people.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, exactly. So,
wow.
Anyways. So, yeah, we drove over today, and when you called me last week to tell me about the possibility of doing this, I'm going, this sounds like fun.
It's going to be weird,
yeah,
isn't it?
It is.
Because Rick has a podcast called Someone You Should Know. Of course, we have two podcasts,
right.
Storyteller Studio and with Liz Wilder is Life's 3x5s. And I told Rick, how about if we double dip this?
Yeah.
And if we do one recording and post it on both, because Storytellers and Someone You Should Know is sort of a similar formula.
Yeah, we're basically out helping people.
Yeah.
Getting the word out. And
that's it.
That's what it is. I mean,
and if you can record some history along the line,
that's always cool too.
It's an added benefit.
I agree.
So that's what we're going to attempt to do. So you have two interviewers and two guests.
Exactly. I like that. That way we could actually do a little something. And Tim and I met. I met with Tim and Liz back in October of 2022. And that was at the Broadcast Museum in downtown Chicago. Our good friend Cliff Long took us around the facilities and such there. You were doing your podcast there, and Leslie and I were just enjoying I was just enamored of all the things we saw. We saw Bozo's costume.
Yeah.
We played the grand prize. Did you play the grand prize game?
We did not, but we went in behind the ropes for the AP machine for when they told about Kennedy's assassination.
Yeah, right.
So that was our woo-woo, for being in there. But the weird part about this is Cliff was a docent, and he sort of greets people and guides them through, and if you have any questions and blah blah blah. So he had already done that with us, and he brought us into the Paul Harvey studio. We're setting up the equipment and everything. And he disappears because he's going on to do his thing. Right. He's good for what he did. Well, then he comes back in after meeting you guys, and he says, oh, you guys got to come back into the Hall of Fame because I've got people here that do almost the exact same thing you do. And I'm going, come on. And, of course, we walk in there, enough. And we compare notes. It's like, yeah, it's pretty similar.
We're radio brothers.
That's
and that's just it.
So then we sat there on the set of Meet the Press with Cliff, and he's telling stories, and it's anything from clown cars in the circus to Gilligan's Island.
Right, exactly. They just found the Gilligan's Island hat of Alan Hale.
Yeah.
And he played the skipper.
And it was bronzed.
Yeah, it was bronzed.
Yeah, and somebody had it deep in the archives.
Right.
And they're going, whoa, wait a minute. This needs to be upstairs.
Exactly.
In a glass cabinet of some sort.
Apparently they received it just about the time COVID hit. It was basically locked away for a year, and the change of staff there didn't even know that it existed down there.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure if Cliff found it or who else found it and said, this needs to be on the purchase floor right now type thing.
Yeah.
No, it was just really cool. And I think there was also like a script or a copy of the theme song or something like that was all in there too. Yeah.
It was.
It was just really cool.
It was a very enjoyable day.
Yeah, some great memories.
And the whole thing started out with us doing a show there. Because we weren't really sure what we were getting into.
Right.
You know what I mean? We were at an event that was also put on by the museum at the Des Plaines Theater. And it was people like Tommy Edwards and Wendy Snyder and not Larry Lujack, John Records Landecker.
Yeah.
They played Larry Lujack type air checks and stuff like that. But I ran into all these people, including Ed Ramsey, who was on the board. I'm sort of comparing notes, sort of like you and I did. And he goes, well, if you need to, call us up and come on down and do a show. He goes, here's the person in contact. And it was just that easy.
Yeah, it's just that easy.
Yeah. And when you walk in the studio, the Paul Harvey studio, everything was donated by WGN when it was down at the Showcase studio.
Mm-hmm.
So walking in there, you could just feel the thickness because I used to go on Michigan Avenue and watch these guys. It was such a treat to be able to do that. And then seeing you and Leslie was just sort of a bonus.
And that's just it. I mean, this is a strange thing about Tim and myself is we're the same age as far as that goes. We're both 78 graduates.
Right.
We both have had a passion for radio. We both grew up listening to Chicago radio.
Yes.
We had LS and CFL and WIND, and every once in a while I'd stray over to like JJD or something like that and see what's going on in the country. And then hit the FM dial too, as far as that goes.
WMAQ, WFM.
MAQ's going to make me rich.
Yes, they are. I think the promise is still holding true.
I don't know.
They're going to make you rich.
It could be. But we just grew up, and that's the question I wanted to ask you is, what was your why? Why did you get into radio?
I would leave Auburn High School at about 3 o'clock, which is when Mark Larson, if you know Mark Larson, who is now in San Diego, was on the radio. Uh-huh. There was something about his sharpness and his quickness, and he was willing to do pretty much anything. Yeah. I said, I want to do that. Yeah. I just want to do that. So then I would go to swim practice at Auburn, and then I would go home, and I had turntables set up and everything in my bedroom, and I'm pretending, and it's like, oh, are you kidding me? And then, but how else do you know unless you practice?
The number of radio brothers and sisters that I've had on share that exact same memory.
Yeah.
As far as they had usually another cassette player. They always recorded into one cassette player. They had another cassette player to do all the commercials that LS had on there.
Yes, and sometimes jingles.
And jingles and such like that.
Yeah.
We had a record player. I was blessed that I had 2 record players upstairs, which was nice. One I could put sound effects on, which I thought was really great.
Ooh.
And here's the thing that really and truly kind of made us stand out is my dear friend Darren, who was my cohort in crime when I'd be doing all these. He had a Radio Shack intercom system. Those little wired intercoms, and he would go in the other room, and he would be my caller.
Oh.
Or whatever. I went across the song. Oh, I got a complaint.
Wow.
You got a complaint. So we would do that, and it was so much fun that, luckily, praise the Lord, I have got several of these cassette tapes. I have them digitized. And
that was my pandemic project.
Yeah.
Between me and Bill Shannon, we would share things back together again. And if I had something that was just too far gone, like it was a reel-to-reel, and it was just nasty, he's got a way of literally baking the tape in the oven to bring it back to radio ready.
Wow.
And he and Ted Smucker, do you know Ted Smucker?
Oh, you betcha.
Yeah. Those two guys, among others, but those two guys are doing all the archival air check stuff on Labor Day weekend on Rewound Radio.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's unbelievable what they have found.
Yeah, the audio quality of that thing is just absolutely magnificent.
It's crazy.
Because you think of the stuff that you're used to listening to AM, and then you're driving underneath a overpass, and all of a sudden you wind up, what was that? What did he say? What did he say? What's the number? What's the number? What number?
Well, and sometimes they only get an air check.
Yeah.
And they want it to sound like you're listening to the entire show on a Saturday afternoon. So they have to blend in all the music.
Yeah.
And it's like, Bill, come on,
man. That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work. But that's his passion.
Yeah.
That's the thing. He does mornings for the Tom Kent Radio Network. So he's got a regular job, and yet he does all this other stuff. But granted, you've got other people to help, and it plays once a year, unless they're doing a tribute, like they just did for Larry Luchek.
Yeah.
So how did you get into radio?
It was a passion of mine. I knew I wanted to be a broadcaster probably since the first time I actually got on stage in front of people. I was part of a special music program in 6th grade. My teacher just absolutely loved me. Myself and a good friend by the name of Jeff Larson, he and I were making fun of these girls who were doing a routine. Okay. And the teacher, being really cool as she was, she said, I'm not going to yell at you guys. I'm going to make... She's basically going to put us part of the program.
Oh, my.
So they had us behind these girls. These girls are doing the routine, and we're doing these, waving our hands and acting like morons and such.
Acting?
we were in sixth grade, so it was not acting.
No,
it was definitely not acting.
So this was the beginning of like a Steve and Gary bit.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
And so as they would start ending one verse, we'd go to the side a little bit further. And next, by the time the song ended, we were out in front leading the girls.
Oh,
and it was like, man,
cute.
I love being on stage.
That's funny.
People talk about being a public speaker, or they'd rather be dead than being a public speaker. Man, I love it.
No, give me a microphone.
Yeah, give me a microphone. That's just, I was convinced I would die with a microphone in my hand.
Well, and we could arrange that.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, we could. We could. Now, Leslie will take care of the
Leslie
burial.
The burial portion of it, but just make sure there's a microphone in there somewhere.
And a mic flag.
Yeah, I got to get a mic flag.
You got to get a mic flag. The other thing when I was so enamored with Mark Larson, who was working at
He's
WROK.
got great pipes. Good Lord, has he got pipes.
Does. Who was working at WROK at the time, who I ended up spending most of my career at WROK, which again is a little weird.
Yeah.
Once I got that bug, it went to making the high school homeroom announcements.
Yeah.
And then it went to doing a student editorial on Channel 13. So it was all these little pieces that went along the way. And then I was dating an older girl, Jerry Fratello. So I was able to go to the prom as a junior. So here's Don Geronimo. You're going to know that name.
Sure do.
And Shotgun Mark Rivers emceeing our prom.
Oh, nice.
And at the end, I said, I'd really like to start a high school radio station. Mark said without hesitation, he pointed me right in the chest and he says, I will help you with that. Yeah. And 2 weeks later, they had full-blown equipment from the production room that they had up in the garage at WROK, and he was down in our basement showing us how to use it. And then when you were talking about a friend that had the know-how and had the wiring and everything, mine was Dave Seddon. And Dave's dad was an engineer, so he picked up on it very, very easily. He built us a transmitter.
Nice.
Yes. It didn't go far, but it was enough for broadcasting on the high school campus.
That is really cool.
So it's sort of who you know.
Absolutely. That's just it. And from that point on, I just knew I wanted to be a broadcaster. I had listened to LS and CFL religiously, and my brother was the one that got me not listening to the music, but listening to the content.
How did he do that?
He just basically said, this guy is really good. And I said, well, why is he good? He said, listen to him. And just don't listen to the song. Just listen to how polished he is.
Yeah.
And I started doing that particular thing, mimicking these things. And when Darren and I would get together on Friday nights, we would do our own radio shows.
Wow.
And it got to a point where I'm getting ready to graduate, and I wanted to go to broadcasting school of some sort. And my dad got sick my senior year, and all the additional money wound up going that way instead of... I had great grades. I had really good grades, but it was not enough to get good scholarship money. So I joined the Air Force. Went to Armed Forces Radio and Television School.
No.
I've got a story for you. This is truth, God's honest truth. I'm in basic training, okay? This is down to Lackland Air Force Base, San Antonio, Texas, okay?
Okay.
This is one of my favorite stories to tell. I had left my lock not completely locked on the lockbox, okay? Which is a security violation in the nth degree, and they would go ahead and chastise you for doing that because it is something they want to teach responsibilities and everything like that.
It's a safety issue.
Absolutely. So I get back, my locker box completely dumped out on my bed, and there's a note: report to the drill sergeant.
No.
The drill sergeant is probably 2, maybe 3 years older than me. He's a buck sergeant. He's just there, and I report, and I'm saluting and everything like that, and I am, shiver me timbers. I am just afraid to do anything. And he goes, do you know why you're in here? I said, yes, my locker box wasn't completely locked. And he goes, and he starts reading me about communication security and operations security and all these particular things. He said, Airman, one of these days you might be guarding a B-52 bomber.
Yeah.
What are you going to be in my Air Force, son? And I said, I'm going to be a disc jockey, sir.
No way. That would be like number 10 on the list for what he would guess you'd say.
He stifled a laugh, looked at me, and threw the lock back at me. He says, get the hell out of my office.
Yeah.
And he and I were cool from that point forward.
Oh, of course.
I became like Private Joker. I became...
Does that explain why I saw the picture of you at a radio station in Guam?
Yeah, exactly. I was stationed in Guam, 1989 to 1991.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, the strange thing is, I'm working for Armed Forces Radio and Television, but the thing is, I am downtown working for a commercial station in Agana, Guam. Here's the thing. When I left Colorado, I sent air checks. There was only 4 stations in Guam. And Guam is 8 by 23.
Yeah, I didn't expect that many.
Real tiny. It's smaller than Lake County, I think.
Yeah.
So anyways, I send off the my air checks and resumes, and I get a call from all 4 stations. And can I meet you at the airport? Do you need someone? Do you need a place to stay? Could you meet with us first? Can you do this? I'm going, okay. I actually went with the station. I went with KZGZ. One, the music was great. It was hard rock at the time.
Okay.
They were playing Metallica and Motley Crue.
Really hard.
Some really hardcore stuff, and everything like that. I went with that station because the program director, Dave Angel, God, I love you, buddy. He says, the money. Here's the money we got here. And I said, I'll take this amount if you give me total creative freedom. He goes, done.
Whoa.
So what I did is on the weekends, I would do a full-blown morning show, except for traffic. Okay. I would have everything else. I would have all of your bells and whistles, all the funny commercials, all the funny bits.
Wow.
I would do a complete 6-hour show every Saturday and every Sunday, and I had total creative freedom to do whatever I wanted to do. I had access to the production. They actually gave me my own production studio.
Wow. And you're still in the service.
Yeah, and I'm still in the service.
Wow.
And then they gave me an offer to stay because I was getting close to my next re-up type thing. And they gave me a substantial 6-figure deal to stay in Guam.
Nobody could say that.
Well,
wow.
Yeah, I was really surprised. And sadly, my wife had island fever. She did not like being there. She did not like being 6,000 miles away from family and friends.
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
Yeah, it isn't. It's not from everyone.
Minnesota's not for everybody either.
Yeah.
So, that's why they pay in sunshine when you go to Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's just the way it is.
That's exactly right. And the other thing is, I never made a great living in radio. The thing is, the enjoyment I've got out of it. It's one of those things that you just purely do out of enjoyment. Right. And it's like now I get my podcast show. I don't have to be doing a podcast show. I'm retired from radio. I did, January 1st, 2023 was my last official day.
Yeah.
I don't need to, but the thing is, I always view this podcast as a nicotine patch to keep me from asking for my own job back.
I may have to steal that and give you royalties. I just might have to do that. Yeah. There's so many people, when you talk about the podcast, there's so many people specifically that are in the manufacturing realm. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put this screw in this hole X amount of times during the day, and I'm told when to take lunch, and I go home at 3:30, and I get my paycheck.
Right.
So the only thing that's important, because I don't really give a crap where they use this screw that I just made, is the money. Inevitably, they will say, well, how much money do you make doing this podcast thing? And I said, I make exactly the same amount that you do when you golf. And I get this deer in the headlight thing, and they say, well, I don't make money at golf. Yes, that's right. You pay them for tee times, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Well, why do you do it? Well, because I really enjoy it, and I get together with friends, and I have a fun time, and it's out in the weather, and I'm outdoors.
Yeah.
And I'm going, there's your answer.
Yeah, I set my own hours just like you do.
Thank you.
As far as that goes. I mean, Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays is when I do my interviews. From 9 a.m. till noon, I book one slot a day.
Yep.
I don't want to overdo it. Mm-hmm. And then I offer Monday nights for the people who have to actually have day jobs. I had a guy last night. He is a scientist at, I think, the University of Cincinnati.
Okay.
His bass player also works within the creative department of the University of Cincinnati, and the drummer was actually in New York at the time, and he was, I think he has to do with in the medical services type thing, as far as he's the one that actually repairs or troubleshoots problems with medical equipment on site and such.
I know a guy like that.
Yeah, and it was just a fun review.
And by the way, that same guy that I know, his name is Ron Scott, he and I were just sort of talking one time, and he says, oh, man, what you're doing now reminds me of what I used to do in the 70s. I'm going, what are you talking about? Because he's been doing medical equipment for as long as I've known him.
Right.
He was the radio announcer and the morale officer for the radio station in a submarine.
Nice.
Yes. They would give him a stipend to go in when they would land, they would port, to go buy records. And he would go get Doobie Brothers and Eagles and bring them back. And
nice.
Oh, my God. Are you kidding me? He goes, oh, no.
And you've got a captive audience, too.
Yeah, big-time captive audience.
Like that.
Yeah. And he said, there's no way. We were sitting at a booth like this. He says, there's no way that whole radio station was not bigger than this.
Yeah.
But he says, we loved it. So it was entertainment. It was information. It was keep the morale up. He loved it. And I'm going, Ron, how long have I known you? And there's nothing that has come up like this before. And he goes, you didn't ask.
Yeah. Tim,
Okay.
how big was ROK studio?
It was pretty roomy.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, I don't know, 20 by 20.
Oh, that is a good size studio.
Maybe
Yeah.
something like that. You know, the great big metal cart turnstiles. And then we also had them wall-to-wall, ceiling to floor.
Carts and such, yeah.
Yeah, but now the same room had two different studios. When I was there for my first tour, it was a stand-up studio. You could be on sort of a high chair, but it was a stand-up studio, and it was flame-throwing rock and roll.
Yeah.
All right. So then when I went to West Virginia and I came back for my second tour, we had redone the studio because we were going from Top 40 to Talk. And so it had that sort of horseshoe look to it with 4 or 5 microphones.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And all sit down. And, of course, the turntables were hidden because you didn't need those anymore.
I know.
So that box took on a whole different look in the 2 times I was there.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking what the smallest studio I've ever worked at was probably the second station I worked at in Guam. It was literally a size of a shoebox. It would be literally about this size. Literally this size right here.
Wow.
You had your carts over here, a set of Delta cart machines.
Sure.
You had the board. And then we didn't have any turntables. We had reel-to-reels on this side here.
Oh, my.
It was literally this size right here.
Wow.
And it would look about the size of a normal production studio.
And they weren't confined because of, like, a submarine. They just happened to be small.
Yeah, it just happened to be small. They were tied with the TV station they had. There was KUAM in Guam, KUAM FM, and KUAM TV in Guam. Yeah.
The smallest station I ever was in was the high school radio station.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because we had to talk to Angelo, the chief janitorial supervisor, in order to get some space. And the principal said, if you can get some space, I'll let you do the radio station. So off I go. And Don Erickson, the principal, was not helping me at all. He goes, no, you have to go get it. Well, he was teaching me a lesson, obviously. So Angelo was very broken English, very Italian. He offered to move pallets of toilet paper in this storage unit next to the cafeteria in order for us to set up a radio station. So here we are walking through. Once we, of course, we had keys. Ooh, that was special. And we had to walk through all of this hand sanitizer and all this other junk before we got to the radio station in the back, because that's where they have the toilet paper. We did it for a very long time, and it was so much fun.
I know. That's just it. The thing is, it's kind of like this feature that I have in my show. It's called Tales from the Road. Those are those infamous road stories of things that happen.
Yeah.
Inevitably. It's basically your Spinal Tap moments. But we also have them in radio, too.
Yeah.
Moments that didn't go quite as planned.
Or that went really, really well that you couldn't have seen coming.
Oh, yeah. Went really well, but you didn't have an air check tape in there. And you forgot to put an air check tape in.
You have no proof.
Oh, no, absolutely no proof of it. It's like, I caught a fish this big. Well, where's the photo of it? Yeah. What's the most unusual moment that happened on air?
Boy, I think when we were doing our broadcast at Walt Disney World, we were the first ones to do satellite broadcast radio-wise in Rockford. And they sent us an engraved invitation, literally an engraved invitation for their 15th birthday. So Jack Lambiant and I went down there. We did one show at Magic Kingdom. We did one show at Epcot. Of course, they keep us very occupied in our non-show hours, either with prep or behind-the-scenes stuff. So we have content. We have things to talk about. They said, well, we've got a bunch of interviews that are going to be group interviews set up over at Epcot tonight. We're going, okay. So we're like cows. We just go wherever they tell us. And you walk in and you see Helen Hayes. And then you walk to another building, and there's Roger Ebert sitting with Dolly Parton. And then on and on and on. And, there was no interviewing. I didn't have any questions. I'm 24 years old. I'm standing there with my mouth hanging open.
Absolutely. You're in awe of everything that's going on.
Yes. We didn't really have really good equipment for remote interviews like that. We had great equipment for broadcasting. So we just sort of geeked out and took some pictures and went to the next building. And there was a complete array of people. And I'll tell you, when you're talking about the surprise things that you do not anticipate, Gene Hawk was our escort. And he was from the wardrobe department. And he came up to us one morning and he says, all right, guys, I've been told to offer you whatever you want to do, and it's my job to go make it happen.
Jeez.
I says, what does that mean? And he goes, it's whatever you think it means. That's what they told me. Ask them what they want to do, and let's try to make it happen.
All
so
right.
Jack and I are looking at each other going, Gene, we need a minute. So he walks away, and he comes back, and he says, I know this is asking a lot, but I would like to broadcast from the Living Seas, because it was relatively brand new. And he goes, oh, that's no problem. We could set up a table. And I go, no. I want to broadcast in the Living Seas. And he goes, you mean underwater? I said, yeah. He goes, I'll be right back. And it was like 20 minutes later, and he goes, we have training tomorrow morning. It's like, come on. Are you kidding me?
Wow.
So then on top of that, he tells us at maybe, 10:30. And this is during the show. We're 30 minutes in. He says, at 1 o'clock this afternoon, you are going to interview Bob Ballard. He found the Titanic not too awful long before we were there. Now, come on. How much can you prep for an interview like that?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And he was the most welcoming, enjoyable guy you would ever sit down and talk to, because he knew we were ignorant.
Yeah.
He knew we had no clue. None. Those were the surprises.
That was a wonderful one. I had my most surprising one that I really and truly kind of geeked over was I did a show for the National Opera Association through All Star Radio called Back in the Pits. It was a daily 90-second bit about the National Opera Association, because everyone was covering IndyCar, everyone was covering NASCAR, but no one was covering the National Opera Association. So I struck a chord with the NHRA. Very happy. I attended the 50th annual Big Go. It was the Labor Day weekend special they have at Indianapolis. It is the Super Bowl. A 50th annual one, okay?
And where was this?
This is Indianapolis.
Oh, it is. Okay.
It's a Claremont, actually. It's just to the west of downtown Indy.
Okay.
So I show up there to the media trailer. I'm getting my credentials and everything. I said, yeah, hi, Rick Anthony, All-Star Radio Network. Just a moment, please. He's here. You know, and
the eagle has landed.
He's here. And a lady comes out and greets me. She says, Mr. Anthony, I am your assistant for the weekend. We have a golf cart assigned to you. Here's your walkie-talkie. Here is your meal tickets. We'll have meals at such and such in the media tent. I am here at your disposal to do whatever you need. I said, well, I have my wife and my engineer with me here. I said, well, we'll get you another golf cart then. So we had 2 golf carts. I had an assigned parking spot.
And a red carpet.
Yeah, basically. I had carte blanche.
Unbelievable.
I did 24 interviews of drivers that weekend.
Holy
from
cow.
The pit of Doug Herbert. He had the Snap-on Tools? I think it was Snap-on Tools or whatever at the time. It was just a fun weekend. That's where everything went well. Conversely,
here we go.
Those moments that things didn't go so well, it would be New Year's Eve, 1997, going into 1998. It is I'm setting. We're doing a countdown show of the top 96 party songs. Oh no, it wasn't that? It was the top 96 classic hit songs.
Are you on location?
I'm on location at what used to be the old St. Louis Playboy Club.
Wow.
So here's the big problem: is we're playing classic rock. The clientele that normally goes there wants to hear dance and hip hop.
Oh no.
Okay. Big problem there. Someone apparently, it's some of the sales folks and whoever the owner was, didn't necessarily convey that, or they kind of made a promise that doesn't happen type thing. Okay.
Oh no.
All right. So I've got an unruly crowd. We want to dance to something. You can't dance to American Pie or Stairway to Heaven. Even for that matter, Sweet Home Alabama is a little challenging
it's
too.
Stretching it.
So, anyways, and I'm broadcasting the top 96 songs and getting boos from the audience, and so it's an unhappy crowd. It's 12 degrees outside. They have oversold the gig. There's too many people.
So you got the fire marshal on your back, obviously. Somebody.
9:30, we run out of food. 11:50, I'm told we're about to make last call. We haven't even got to midnight yet. Okay. Now, I have not eaten at all because I was told, oh, no problem, we'll get you food and everything like that. No, my engineer is looking at me, and and my late wife was there at the time too. So
what a train
I'm looking
wreck.
over. Someone is drunk and they're urinating on the side of the DJ console. So I have to make an announcement that says 3, 2, 1, Happy New Year, last call.
Oh no.
So a fight breaks out. My engineer says the cops are on their way. He rushes me out. He says, I'll take care of the gear and everything like this. You just get your wife and get the heck out of here.
Unbelievable.
I have to throw it to the studio with 8 songs left. No, we still haven't eaten. We decide we're going to hit a Denny's in our hometown. Okay,
no.
So we get there. A fight breaks out in the Denny's. Oh. And my late wife and I, it was one of those moments, please, Calgon, take me away. Years later, I wound up at a gig, and the owner of that place, we were just kind of talking war stories and stuff like that. The name was called Kirby's. And I said, I said, what do you do? I'm the manager of Kirby's. I'm going, were you the manager in 1997 going into 1998? He goes, yes, I was. And he goes, I was your disc jockey that night. It was, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong.
Yeah, it was one of those things. It was as I call it, the New Year's from hell.
That is such a great story, though, because you can't make that up.
Yeah.
You can't even make up part of it.
I got another good one for you, too. It's Thanksgiving I think it was 1997 also, come to think of it. It was Thanksgiving. I'm on the air doing the overnight shift. Matter of fact, it was going into Black Friday. It was Thanksgiving night into Black Friday, or it would start at midnight, and I would get off at 6 a.m. About 3 a.m., I start getting the itches. My back starts to itch, and I'm thinking, okay, well, gosh, maybe it didn't use the right softener or something like that. By 4 o'clock, I'm really in trouble. I'm getting itching everywhere. I'm looking on my arms, and there's welts popping up on my arms.
Oh, my.
I realized that my children had gotten exposed to chicken pox about 14 days prior.
And there's nothing funny about that.
I had not ever had chicken pox as a child. Oh. So I have full-blown chicken pox at 6 a.m. I'm calling the local hospital. They said, yeah, we've been listening to the last hour of your show, and we've got a room waiting for you. Just come on down.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Yep.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that was just so funny. And I had it everywhere, boys and girls, everywhere. And
there was a time where Dave said, and that same friend of mine, we were at the house where, I was living at my mom's house at the time, and I had to go on the air that night. And we kept hearing this zzz, 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 and we couldn't track it down. Well, all of a sudden we did. We tracked it down to this piece of drywall in the garage. And that entire 2 areas in between the 2x4s turned out to be filled with bees.
Oh, dear Lord.
But they had eaten, which I didn't understand this part at all, they had eaten the drywall away, or at least, chipped it away in order to make room for their honey. Mm-hmm. And the only thing was paper. So as we went over and we touched it, it all broke away.
Oh,
and
dear Lord.
Bees are all over us.
Oh, my Lord.
So we ran over to another part of the garage, and we picked up a 4x8, 3/4-inch piece of plyboard.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to put it in front of this drywall, to sort of keep them in there. Well, I dropped the plyboard on my foot.
Oh, nice.
So I had to do my entire show, my 6-hour show, with my foot in the air, to keep the blood down.
Uh-huh.
So I got maybe 3 hours in, and I said, I hardly ever do this, but I need you guys' help. Here's what happened, blah, blah, blah. I need some help.
Uh-huh.
Well, keep in mind, when I got off at 12 midnight on that Sunday, I drove back to the university, which is about 50 minutes away, and I had an 8 o'clock in the morning class. So there's a whole lot that they can't do. It's sort of in that category.
Exactly, yeah.
Can you imagine doing your show with your feet in the air? I mean, how bizarre.
Sounds like Dave Grohl doing the concert he did in, was it Norway or Sweden or so, where he fell off the stage, and they had to have the EMT actually hold it for 2 hours. He held his
So the show went on.
The show went on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you should have seen the looks from the newsroom when they
imagine.
came in. They're going, what are you doing? Really? There's no visual effect in radio. Put your legs down. No, Fred, trust me. It's a problem. I want to be able to bring people up to speed a little bit. Guest today is Rick Anthony. He is a guy that I met at the Museum of Broadcast Communications. He has a podcast called Someone You Should Know. We are in Merrillville, Indiana, in the middle of January, in the middle of pouring rain, at a diner called Maxim's.
Yeah. Thanks, Maxim's, for hosting us, too.
Yeah, so now you are officially up to date with what we're doing. Have you had a guest, predominantly, I think, on your podcast, where you sort of thought the guest was going to be normal, average, and they just exceeded your expectations?
I just had a couple recently that were like that. One was a guy by the name of Justin Sullivan. He makes a living being A Night with the Gambler is what it's called. Okay, it's a tribute to Kenny Rogers. Okay. He looks just like Kenny Rogers, and we're talking about the Kenny Rogers we all fell in love with, the before steroids and before liposuction and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
We were just going to basically play like Lady or I think we'd already played The Gambler or like Cowardly County, whatever we might have played. And so he just had a couple of those songs. So I wasn't sure exactly how this was going to go. And I'm a big fan of tribute acts because they really and truly bust their ass to put out a good show.
They do.
So this guy starts telling me the stories, and next thing you know, I am laughing so hard.
Is he just a jokester?
No, it's just the stories that he did. I said, did you ever use your looks to get a free meal or something like that? He goes, you would not know how many times I did that. And there was one particular place, I think it was in North Carolina, where he did that, and the lady goes, are you him? And it says, yeah, I'm he. Yeah, that's me. I'm he.
I'm not lying. I am he.
Yeah. And she said, could I bother you? Could we get a video of you making a hamburger in the back?
No.
And he said, sure, I'd love to do that. And people, the crew was fighting over who got to get the burger that the Kenny Rogers lookalike.
Yeah, that's
and
hilarious.
He said, the true thing was, he says, you've got a bunch of pictures of me. I want to get a couple of pictures with you. Mm-hmm. Oh, do you want to do that? Surely. He goes, he stands there, and just as about ready to take the thing, he says, by the way, my name is Justin Sullivan. And the girl goes, yeah, right.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was a great story. He just had so many fun stories about that.
Good for him.
It was just one of those things. And there was a couple of interviews I've had that were kind of flat that I kind of thought were going to go better. Did you ever interview a celebrity that really and truly let you down?
Oh, yeah. Oh, geez. Billy Barty.
Oh, really?
And it was completely my fault. At WROK, we had this series of desks that we called a bullpen. So any of the jocks, not the newsroom or anything, but any of the jocks would have shared desks with each other, depending on your air shift.
Yep.
You know, I'm grabbing all my stuff and I'm going in for the show. I grabbed the wrong bio. So when it was time to have Billy Barty on, I was reading somebody else's bio.
Oh, dear Lord.
Hey, Billy, I understand, blah, blah, blah. No. You know, back in the 1960s when this happened to you, you know, because I'm like 25 years old, you know, I don't know what
I was like being married to Diane Keaton.
Diane who? Yeah. And he hung up on me.
Oh, geez, yeah.
He did. He goes, I can't take this anymore. And I did not realize what manure pile I had stepped in. I just didn't understand why all these facts, which I had clearly documented for another guest for another day, was just falling flat. Oh God.
Geez,
and he goes, I can't take any more of this. And he hung up. And I'm going, okay. Yeah. That's about the only one.
The one I had that really let me down was Gallagher, the Sledge-O-Matic guy.
Oh,
the Gallagher.
Yeah.
Because I'd seen all of his specials and such, and he was just a hoot. And just I saw him in concert one time. Real funny guy. And we got him on the show, and he had this idea that he was pitching this to Las Vegas. It was going to be a hotel that would be strictly for individuals having family reunions. It would cater to that particular thing.
Okay.
That's all he wanted to talk about. He did not want to talk about the Sledge-O-Matic. He didn't want to talk about any part of his act.
Whoa.
So it's like, okay, I prepared 5 minutes worth of material here, and we're going to get done with about 60 seconds. Thanks so much, Gallagher. Have a great day. Yeah, that would fell flat. Do you ever have any equipment problems in the studio?
Yeah, particularly on the phone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I would be running a contest or something, something would happen to where the phone would not connect to the board. And, you know, you don't get the whole excited, I won $1,000, you know, blah, blah, blah. You don't get that. And you go, well, I've done this 100 times. What's my problem? And, it didn't take much. It was just some kind of a little wire. And I'd call Jack or I'd call, somebody from the, bowels of the engineering. And they'd come up and they'd go, well, let's see what the problem is.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, they'd push this wire together.
Of course, you hear the angels go,
Yeah. And they push these two connectors together and they go, there you are. You are back to go. And oh, really? You make it look so easy.
Maybe they disconnected it while you were out in the bathroom or something like that.
No. Most of our stuff was on location, which granted, my God, you're dealing under every kind of circumstance you could possibly imagine. Yeah. Like you're talking about the guy peeing on your equipment, Most of the people are wondering with Liz and I, with our other podcast, Life's 3x5s, because why do you guys choose to do it all on location? Wouldn't that be the horror of not knowing and things breaking down and not having service and blah, blah, blah. And knock on wood, we have had pretty good
You're lucky
luck.
there. Very, very lucky.
Pretty good luck. So we keep doing it.
Did you ever have Scott Studios where you have the touch screens?
No. That tells you how old I am.
One of my very favorite moments is when I was at K-Hits 96 in St. Louis. And they had switched from, I can't remember what it was, to Scott Studios. And those are all touch screens. You just touch them. If you want to fire a song, just you punch it in and just hit the button.
That would be so weird.
Okay.
Yeah. No cart machines, nothing.
No, it was all done that way. Here's the fun part though. They had the sensitivity level not calibrated correctly.
I didn't know you could set that.
Apparently, the engineers do that kind of thing.
Wow,
because us dumb jocks don't do that kind of stuff. But we had an incident where I had to sneeze, and I was busy doing something else with my hands that I just sneezed to the left, and the computer monitor that had to be right in that right spot, I fired off an entire stop set.
Oh. All at once with one big old goober. Oh, my God. And then you're wondering what you did.
Yeah.
And then trying to stop it all.
Yeah, well, that's just it, exactly. But, yeah, it was just like, go, stop, ugh, stop, ugh, stop. Where's a rag?
This is not a snot story, but it's close to a snot story. There was a, I want to say, he was our program director at one time, but I don't think he was program director at the time. And he heard that Ken DeCoster in the newsroom, or maybe John Strandon, you just could not break them up. I don't care what you do. That was the rumor. You could not break them up. So, of course, he's in there on the weekends, and he's in his polo shirt, and he's all relaxing, and, he's just in there doing his work. He's not on the air or anything. So there's no repercussions. Yeah. And he goes up to John Strandon in the newsroom with the glass in between and tries to make him laugh. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And Charlie he holds up his finger and he goes, I'll be right back. So he goes to the refrigerator, gets this bowl, puts everything in this bowl. Ketchup, mustard, pickles, any kind of crap that you could possibly mix together in a big bowl. He brought that bowl back and smeared it all over the glass. And then he started licking it off.
Oh, dear Lord.
And Strandon lost it.
Oh, jeez.
And, of course, the jock on the other side, who's waiting for the news to finish, is dying. I don't know if it was Chuck Doyle or Joe James or who it was. So when it's time for the news to finish, you hear nothing but laughing. And Charlie became our operations manager.
Jeez.
Yeah, thanks for the role model on that one, will you?
Hey, Tim, what was the most unusual request you ever had?
This is way, way back. This is my first radio station, WLUV, which I actually worked for again in 2022 after the owner died at the age of 98.
Jeez.
He still owned the station. And it looked like a hoarder's reality show.
Oh, my.
And they said, we need to get this all up and nice and rolling and sell it because the family doesn't want to be in radio.
Right.
So here's this family. They're called the Rasmussen family. And there must have been 6 people in that family. And they would take turns calling the radio station asking for the same song. Well, wouldn't you think that would increase your chances for getting that song played? Them not putting 2 and 2 together that we've connected. We know who you are. And it was Loretta Lynn's Don't Come Home A-Drinkin'. Well, really? How many people are going to request that specific song? No, it's the same family.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was just weird that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had 2 that I'd like to share. One of which was this girl called up, and she wanted to hear a specific song. She wanted to hear Daddy's Hands by Holly Dunn.
Okay.
Her father passed away. She had gone on about 4 or 5 minutes about, he died of bladder cancer, but he was just the wondrous, greatest guy in the entire world. And, this big old sob story and everything like this. I said, sweetheart, this is after 4 or 5 minutes of just telling me. I can't get a word in edgewise. I said, sweetheart, we don't have that particular song. I'm very sorry. She said, well, just play Honky Tonk Badonka-Donk. I thought, man, I've been had.
Well, she had a plan B.
Yeah, absolutely. Play Honky Tonk Badonka-Donk. Oh, good Lord. The other one was I came on at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I was working 2 to 6. This is at WIL in St. Louis, one of the big country legend stations. Lo and behold, about 4 o'clock, I get the phone ring. I said, hi. I said, yeah, we've been waiting to hear a song. I said, what song is that? I can't remember what the song was. It said, yeah, we've been waiting to take the body out of the hearse and take it to the gravesite. We wanted to hear that song.
No.
And we told the jock that was on it before you that we wanted to hear that song, and he said he'd do his best to play it for us. Oh. And here it is. We've been waiting over 2 hours now. When you going to play that song?
No.
And I had to stop and think, what is the mindset of an individual who doesn't think maybe get a cassette player or something
anything.
like that? Do they have to call the local radio station? And I got so many death dedications as far as,
wow,
a little bummed out today. What's the matter? Says, well, thinking about my uncle who passed away. Oh, did he die away? Just recently? No. Was this an anniversary? No, died 15 years ago. When? Last, October. This is July. It's like, there's no relevance.
No, did you feel like Casey Kasem at that time?
Yeah, the death dedication?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, where's Don? Bring Don in. I want someone to make a concerted effort here.
I got to tell you one
Yeah.
that I don't know why it just popped into my head. I had the opportunity to interview Charlie Pride.
Oh yeah, I talked to Charlie too. Yeah,
He's a good guy.
Yep.
Massive hands.
Yeah.
And did you know he used to play for the Milwaukee Brewers?
No, I did not. No.
That was a lot of what our conversation was.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 3 days after his jet almost collided with another jet.
Oh, my.
It was very, very, very close. So he was still sort of shaken up by the thing. Well, my dad's cousin, which is considerably older than I am, I always knew was a huge Charlie Pride fan. So I called him up. I'm going to be going to this event. I'm only allowed one trip with my equipment. I need somebody to help me carry the equipment into this event. Would you be interested in doing it? And he goes, sure. He didn't ask where. He didn't ask what. He didn't, nothing, absolutely nothing. He goes, what time are you going to pick me up? 10:30. Okay. He gets in the car. Nothing, absolutely nothing. So I give him the equipment, and of course, nobody else knew. So it's not like he had privy information. And we walked into one of these, special rooms at the Holiday Inn on 11th Street. It still had paneling on the room, if that gives you an idea.
There you go.
And there was Charlie Pride. And I thought Denver, literally as a grown-ass man, was going to pee his pants.
Yeah.
And he did not say anything. He was in awe the entire time. It was just one of those really, really cool moments. And it happened to be Denver's birthday that day.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, when you can do that kind of stuff and make the moons line up, that's really, really cool.
Yeah. Did you ever have a celebrity that you're really connected with on a level that you really never thought would happen?
Absolutely. Barbara and Louise Mandrell. Yeah. I interviewed them both 3 times, never together, and never in the same location. We had very, very nice conversations. Keep in mind, I'm like 19 years old.
Right.
They shouldn't have let me in the room at all, period. When it was time for me to pack up my stuff and say, hey, the show's going to start soon, I want to get out of your way, when they say, well, no, we just sit here. Just sit and talk. You don't have to have the microphone on. That's why we've had a 40-year relationship.
That's
yeah,
nice. That's
because
nice.
they're just the nicest people ever.
I see a lot of that with country artists too. I had a moment with Aaron Tippin.
Oh, no
I was
kidding.
supposed to have I was supposed to have him on to talk about his new album and everything like that.
Wow.
One of the things I love to do when I have guests is to find a little bit more about them, something that I have common bonds with. So we bring that up, and we start talking. And says, "Yeah, Aaron, we're going to talk about your new album here, but first I wanted to ask you a question. How you like flying that Cirrus SR-22?" And he goes, you know I got a new Cirrus. And I said, you were on the cover of my Airline Owners and Pilots Association magazine. He goes,
how nice.
So we started talking for 15 minutes about the plane and the fact that it's got the left-handed joystick type thing versus the control column. I said, we were talking about that. I said, you better talk about your album here. We got about a minute and a half left here. I think your record company's going to be PO'd at me if we don't talk a little bit about your record. But that was it. We just connected on a level. It was just so cool.
And the nice part about the podcast is there's no rules.
Yeah.
So there's no time restraints.
That was actually on the radio. That was on the radio. That one was on the radio.
Yeah, but I know. But you had
a time constraint. Yeah, absolutely.
In the back
podcast.
of your head.
Yeah, the podcast is just cool because when you really connect with an individual,
take it from there.
Just take it from there. I had a guy by the name of Vince Tallarico. He plays the role of Neil Peart in the Rush Experience, which is a great Rush cover band or tribute band. He played in the band, and I was a huge Rush fan through the years and such. And we just connected. It's like, here is almost an hour into the interview. It's like, okay, this is going to be a lot of editing here, but that's okay. I'm just having a ball doing it, There's sometimes you really and truly connect with an individual. It's kind of, you feel a kinship.
Yeah.
Of someone doing the same thing you're doing, or something that really and truly struck a chord with you.
With the podcast, I know I've got that editability.
Yeah.
So if we go down a path and I sort of hit a brick wall of some sort, I can take it out and nobody will ever know the difference. But when I was on with John Records Landecker on WGN, we did not so much, before we opened up the mics, we did not so much shake hands. Uh-huh. We did not have any conversation of where are we going to go, what are we going to talk about. And I'm co-hosting a 3-hour show with him on WGN. Uh-huh. So I don't know where the fences are. Uh-huh. I don't know if they're electric. Mm-hmm. I don't know where the landmines are, if any. Mm-hmm. I don't know. So I had to feel my way, and I don't know if he was doing the same, feel my way through this conversation. And then you get to a point, and I know you know what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
You get to this point where there's the connection, and you're good from there on
out. Absolutely.
And when I told him, a friend of mine and I went into several radio stations in Chicago to see how the big guys did it. Yeah. We went to WLS, which is where John, cut his teeth and was so gigantic in Chicago, for those of you who are not in the area. And I was telling him the story about, Paul Harvey got in the elevator with us on our way up to the 5th floor, blah, blah, blah. Right. And I says, after all that could have been enough. We could have gone home. I went up and I met with Jim Smith. You remember Jim Smith?
Jim Smith, you bet.
And he goes, oh, yeah, he was my music director. And from then on, everything was fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
But you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Landecker was just so wonderful to talk to also. He was able to tell me about the origins of the boogie check, as far as that goes. Do you know that story? Fred, and it was J.J. Jeffries. J.J. had a mustache, and he would go out on dates, but he would always do what you refer to as a booger check to make sure that he didn't have any extraneous things sticking out of his nose.
No bats in the cave.
Absolutely, bats in the cave, true thing. And I said, one of the coolest things you ever did was in 1977 when everybody was forced to listen to You Light Up My Life, and you managed to do Debbie Gibson's You Light Up My Life on the installment plan, where he would play like 10 seconds of the song in the first part of his show, and then a couple of minutes later or half an hour later, he'd play another 10 minutes or something like that. By the last part of the show, at 10 o'clock, when he got off and headed off to Jeff Davis, he would play the last 3 or 4 seconds of And You Light Up My Life. That's it. Yeah.
But to the music director or the program director, did you play Debbie Boone? Yes, I did.
Yes, he did. Absolutely. And
I did.
And the thing is, with the individuals, I mean, I don't know about you. I used to record songs right off the radio.
I did.
As far as that goes, you imagine an individual who wanted that song and would have to sit through 4 hours of a show and then try to do the splice job on that?
That's it. Sadly, some of those cassettes I still have.
I do too.
I know.
I do too. And I'm so grateful to God that we're going back to when I first started talking about this. I have an old cassette tape of me with my voice cracking.
Oh,
yeah. So that's that was kind of a special thing. Kind of a special thing.
Here's the other thing with digitizing and being able to salvage all this stuff, because they get brittle and over years and whatever. So I'm doing this during the pandemic, making use of my time, and I pull out this white cassette, so it didn't have any, Memorex or any of that on it, and it didn't have a label on it. And I'm going, God, I'm pretty anal retentive about this.
Yeah.
This is sort of weird. Maybe the sticker fell off. Okay. that's a possibility. So I turn it over, nothing on the other side.
Okay.
So I popped this thing in. They were custom liners for WROK from Casey Kasem.
Oh, geez, really?
On one side.
Uh-huh.
And the other side were custom liners promoting their shows,
Yeah.
On WROK from Wolfman Jack.
Oh, jeez.
Here's a WROK hit-bound record that could be destined for AT40. That's a good take. Here's another one. Here's a WROK hit-bound record that could be destined for AT40. That's two good ones.
Hi there, everybody. Hi, everybody, WROK. Hey. Oh, my. Here we go. We're going to do this thing you sent in here. It says, please feel free to ad-lib for these little bits. There's 12 of them here. We're going to lay them down to you right now. Hey, this is the Wolfman coming at you right after Casey Kasem tonight at 9 o'clock on WROK. It's Wolfman Jack on Rockford's #1 radio station, WROK. Pardon me? That was big time. Bob Wilson said bullshit. This Wolfman Jack on Rockford's #1 radio station, WROK. This is WROK Rockford, baby. And right now, it's 11 o'clock. Lay back and get all these good vibrations.
And they weren't labeled.
Jeez.
So you can imagine if your mother got a hold of them, oh, this is nothing, like throwing out your baseball cards.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
what I did is I got a hold of people like Johnny Marks and Bill Shannon and Ted Smucker and those guys, and I wanted these things to be in more than one place.
Right, yeah.
Which now it's so easy to share. I didn't want to be the only one with this, and then my computer crashes. That would
Exactly.
suck.
Yeah, it's like Scott Childers. He's kind of like the historian for LS.
He is.
And I got a bunch of old WLS surveys. I mean, when you used to go Friday afternoon after school, immediately go to Dougleby's Records over here in Hobart, Indiana.
We did.
And I would get the WLS survey or whatever surveys were available. If I didn't get that one, I'd head over to Camelot Music over here in the mall, not
Yeah.
far from us. Tim was over here, and get the survey as far as that goes. But my rule was this: any song that broke into the top 10, I would buy. That was my rule as far as whether I liked the song or not.
Okay.
I would buy it because I would have to play it on my radio station type
That's
thing.
true.
That way I could slam it.
Did you ever have a record store that would allow you to play the flip side so you know you were getting your $1.29's worth?
No.
We had one downtown on Mulberry, and I like Beatles, whatever, yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's the second side sound like? I felt pretty good about it because, $1.29 back in 1977, I was the stipend for the radio
exactly.
station.
On those rack jobbers that were putting all those doing the updates and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Man, I wanted to do that job. I'd really like. I followed the charts. At the age of 17, my senior year in high school, I had a subscription to Billboard magazine.
Did you
I
really?
did. I paid $75 for a year. That way I could follow it. And I loved those big, huge pictures and stuff like that. I had this beautiful one of Ann and Nancy Wilson. Oh, dear God. As Steve Martin would say, the hours I held up that photo with one hand, No,
it's not because you're queuing up a record.
No, absolutely, no.
Or unless queuing up a record is a metaphor.
Oh, jeez, no. But no, that was it was just amazing. I used to love that. And I used to follow those charts religiously, and that was a top 20 song. I said, no, it was actually a top 10 song, it peaked at 22 on this particular week, and they were on this particular label, and and this is who produced it. And I'm going, I have all these facts that absolutely mean nothing to no one. But the thing is, I could forget my PIN number, but I could tell you Elton John was on Rocket Records after MCA. And
that's it. There was a guy that found out about our Storyteller studio by mistake. He's in California. He was not being able to sleep that night. He got up at like 1:30 or 2 in the morning. And you know how some of the podcasting will say, well, if you like this one, you might like this one.
Yeah.
So he starts looking at Storyteller Studio, and he starts looking at these names, and he goes, I know these people. Mm-hmm. He used to work at WROK from 1974 to 1979. Mm-hmm. His name is John Schweisberger. Mm-hmm. Chris Kelly on the air. Somehow he tracks me down through my wife at her job. He says, I'd love to be on this. I'm going to be home in Rockford not too awful long. Yes, fine. We got together. We got 5 or 6 people together, had lunch, had a wonderful time, started to sit down doing the show, and he goes, I brought some stuff to give to you, and I also brought some stuff to show to you. So I didn't know which was which. He brings out this 1976 T-shirt of WLS Animal Stories with a beaver on it.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And it was thin. It was really thin. And it was a size small. And I thought he was going to show it to me. He goes, I'm giving this to you.
Oh, jeez.
So then I took it over to Hobby Lobby and have it all framed up.
Absolutely.
Because, right before he left, he said, I want to leave all of these with you. He had collected every music survey that WROK put out every week that he had worked at the radio station. So from 1974 to 79. Now he's going to do, this is the whole 360 deal.
Right.
Now he's going to do a countdown show on Sky 7, which is the radio station I'm on in Phoenix, Arizona, beginning next month, using those surveys.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So he'll look up the trivia. He'll tell you a little something about Fleetwood Mac or whatever.
Right.
And the guy that runs the radio station, Sky 7 in Phoenix, is the same guy that I talked to you about, Shotgun Mark Rivers,
Yep.
who helped me start the high school radio station. The same guy. His name is Mike Lamb.
Hi to everyone listening to Storyteller's studio podcast all over the world. I'm Isba Snabash, and I'm here to tell you that Tim really appreciates your dedication to the show. But I'm also here to let you in on a huge secret. Tim Larson leads a second life as an author. As a writer, he's known as Tim Dingus, D-I-N-G-U-S. His 3 drastically different books can be easily found on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You'll find things to think about for at least 1 minute, the comings and goings of T-shirts, and the power of props. As we all know, Tim's mind runs non-stop, and these are just the book versions. Again, just search Tim Dingus on Amazon and discover the author side of your podcast host. Now back to more of Tim's impromptu conversation on the Storyteller Studio podcast.
What other kind of things are you, taking on as a project or something like that? What else occupies Rick Anthony's time?
It's amazing. Leslie and I had a very busy year last year. She lost her mother and her father. And so we had been very, very busy going down there, caring for her mom until she passed, and a variety of things, getting the house, ready to get sold and such like that. So last year we didn't get a chance to travel. This year we are doing some traveling. And because she and I love to travel and I love to be creative, we are going to be doing a lot of videos this year. I bought her a brand new laptop for Christmas, the state-of-the-art Apple, and I got a copy of Final Cut Pro. I spent the last 3 weeks learning that from top to bottom, inside and out.
It is fun to learn that kind of stuff.
And the thing is, at our age, it's always nice to be creative and such like that. I was lucky when I was with the All-Star Radio Network for those 19 years. I got a chance to do a lot of video editing and a lot of being creative. And the whole thing with this is now just the opportunity to be creative. I did something a couple of days ago, which was really cute. I'm shoveling out for the birds and squirrels to get to and everything like that. And I put it to some kind of music, and I did it all. I sped it up and everything like this. And I put another clip in and another clip in, and it just flowed so well. I'm going, I still got the chops to do it.
Wow. And so is this a TikTok thing or
Instagram? No. Actually, that I just posted. I posted on Facebook because it was like 4 minutes long, and of course the rules on, this is going to be less than 60 seconds.
Right.
You can't do this particular thing and slap your ham on this particular thing. And
you'd rather be in the area where there's no rules.
Yeah. I know. Christ,
Which is
that was the day of me. Hey, I want total creative freedom.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I'll take $1 less. Give me creative freedom. Yeah.
And then they give you a bowl of soup to go.
Oh, there you go. Absolutely.
To make up for it.
Here's a hat.
Do you still have a lot of those promotional products from back in the day?
I do. Because they're kind of treasured memories for me. I've got a lot of moth-eaten shirts from radio stations. I, too, had a WLS Animal Stories shirt from 79. I have no idea where it is now with the numerous moves that I've done through the years. I have no idea where it is. But most of the stations I worked at, I have at least a piece of memorabilia from them. Yeah, as far as it goes. If it's not a bumper sticker or something like that, I've got a nice collection of bumper stickers too that I used to plaster on my walls.
So
just with push pins and stuff like that.
Recently, they talked about WLS's 100th anniversary. WGN's 100th was last year. So they make the whole big thing. They pull all the big stuff out, and there are probably 5 different Facebook pages that I follow that, Midwest Radio Memories, stuff like that, right? And so I went downstairs and I took a picture of this WLS travel mug with Larry Lujak on it. And then I looked a little further and it's like, oh, crap, I've got another one. So I took a picture of that and I posted it. And there's unbelievable amount of comments that go along with it going, oh, I used to have one of those. And then they go ahead and tell the story of how it disappeared.
Yeah.
Or some people say, geez, I am a gigantic fan. And I'm a lifelong resident of Chicago. And I have never seen that mug. That kind of stuff, it's really cool. And you just can't force yourself to throw it away. And that's a good thing.
There's a lot of cool video too. If you look online, especially if you're a fan of WLS and such. Turi Ryder was a guest on my show. Turi was she did the overnights.
She's a cut up.
She is a darling. She's a darling. Love her very, very much.
She's very quick witted.
She told me that she had a role to play in a video they were doing that had to do with Bigfoot. The guys that basically were to tell you to be quiet in the movie theaters and such like that. Okay. And Lou Jack and. Let me see. It was Tommy. It was Fred Winston. It was Brant Miller. And it was Turi. And Turi was the secretary. And she had to wear this little outfit, this little thing that she says I wouldn't be caught dead in, type thing. And she was telling me about how chivalrous that Larry was. As far as, you want to make sure she got home safely wearing that particular outfit and such. It just amazes me of some of the things. And that particular piece of memorabilia is online. So you just look for that particular thing. I still love radio swag. It's just one of those things, a bumper sticker or a keychain.
I know.
I had a WLS litter bag that was signed by Yvonne Daniels.
Come on.
Yeah, she was at the auto show, 75 Auto Show.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and she signed that. Yeah.
Wow. I remember the auto show that I went to. Took my son and one of his buddies. They were maybe 10 years old, something like that. And it was at that point where you could say, go off, have a good time, meet us back here for lunch at this time. We go up to this particular display, and it's gigantic WLS. I mean, it's just huge. And it was John Landecker and Catherine Johns.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And at the time, I was more interested in Catherine Johns because I had seen Landecker.
Yeah,
I know what I see him on the surveys and everything.
Yeah.
But I had no idea what Catherine Johns looked like. So my son has this picture of me gawking at this WLS broadcast, and he goes, "This is my dad." It's like, God.
Well, that's just true.
Everybody else is here to look at cars, and you're watching the radio station people. What's the matter with you?
I wanted so badly to be a part of this one radio station when I was in Colorado Springs that I went to their celebrity softball game and videotaped it and took it into the GM's office.
Oh,
and
nice move.
I said, by the way, are you hiring? He goes, you need to talk to Bill Betts. Tell him I sent you.
Wow.
And I gave him an air check tape. He says, can you start Saturday? One of those kind of things.
Nice.
I just needed some part-time hours and such. And
here's a flip side or a flip story to that Des Plaines thing I was telling you about. With the museum putting this on, it was Rock Radio Revisited. They had a panel and everybody was telling their stories and blah, blah, blah. Well, about halfway through, John Landecker said, hey, I want to point out some people that are in the crowd that were either at WLS at the time or they were in the office, and I'm really glad they're here, and they were very supportive and influential back in the day when we were all working there. They were our support staff. And Chuck Buell is here.
Chuck.
And Chuck was the row behind me, about 5 chairs. Yeah. So I leaned back, and I saw what he looked like, and I went up to him afterwards. And I said, Chuck, you don't know who I am, but I have something for you. Pulled it out of a pouch, and he goes, are you a record rep? Are you a record rep? Seriously? And I pulled out a survey with him and Chris Eric Stevens. And it was probably 1974, something like that. I pulled out a Sharpie, and I says, I would really like for you to sign this. And he goes, yeah, but then that'll ruin it. And I said, look, I've got 3 duplicates.
Oh, dear.
So you're going to have one to take with you.
Oh,
exactly.
Nice.
So fast forward, that was the day I met Art Volo. That was the day I met Ted Smucker.
Oh, yeah.
I met so many people. That's the day that I met Pam Police, who was doing the Dick Biani film.
Mm-hmm.
It was an unbelievable day.
What's the most unusual resume story you've ever heard? I heard of a guy that used to put $5, you'd attach $5 bill to the resume and his tape, send it to the PD, and he said, the coffee's on me, just listen to the tape.
Mine was a fortune cookie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I did not receive this as a resume, but it's urban legend, I guess, is that this person sent their resume and their tape back in the day. It was a reel-to-reel with a bunch of fortune cookies in this box and said, I see myself as part of the future of the radio station.
Yeah, I don't know if it ever worked for him or not,
I don't
but I just
know.
remember hearing that story. I thought it was pretty
I
wild.
have no idea if it worked for this guy or not.
Yeah.
But it's sort of fun.
That's just as fun as sharing war stories, you know?
It is.
It's just one of those things, we could probably talk for another 4 or 5 hours, but I know we probably have to go.
And I also tell you that as soon as we leave here, you'll be in the car and you go, Leslie, I forgot to tell him this.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
I
just it.
should have told him this.
There's just so much. I've had so many great experiences on the radio.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all I've ever wanted to do. And here I am, 63, and just still loving it as much as I did when I was 43.
But honestly, the podcast technology has allowed people like you and I to continue that,
Absolutely.
that radio need
Absolutely.
and do it just in a different way.
Yeah, do it our way. That's the big thing
Yeah.
here. With my podcast, it is purely this. I do this. I do not get paid for this. I do this purely out of love to help individuals. That is just I had a problem in my career. This is probably like the 25-year point or something like that, where I said I could not deal with my ego. I would get my air check tape and it's like, I think it's a great show. I think it's a good show. Get in the car, and I blew a break. One break in a 5-hour show.
And you're saying this about yourself.
Yeah, and I'm going, oh, that is terrible. That's terrible. And I could not be consoled. So I realized my ego was getting a little out of hand. I would name drop all the time as far as, I talked to such and such. I talked to someone. He's like, well, no one wants to hear that. No one wants to hear that. So finally, I had one of those coming to Jesus type talks where I just basically said, Lord, help me. And I literally heard, stop helping yourself and start helping others.
Oh, my.
And for the last 15, probably the last 14, 19, 15, 16 years of my career, that's all I did. It was when I was the moderator of the show. I played the music. I had the funny stuff like that. But the thing is, if you were on my show as a caller, you were the star of my show. I am the guy that hosts the show. You're the star of my show. And that's how this podcast goes. It is purely to help others.
Yeah.
It is something that, and you're going to get a great podcast. It's free. You're going to get a great quality product because I have had 44 years of experience of editing and everything.
Yeah.
I've talked to, I have to say, about 6,000 people now.
It's crazy,
Yeah,
isn't
it just dumbfounds me. It's just still so much fun.
It is.
People are saying, well, why are you doing this? It's because I want to help you. What's in it for you? Nothing.
No, they always ask me that. What's in it for you?
There's nothing.
We're going to be doing a show next week at a pottery place. And this is not buy a piece of pottery, paint it, and then pick it up a week later after they kiln it. It's not like that. This is sitting down at a wheel like Demi Moore. Or was it Demi Moore?
Yeah, it was Demi Moore, yeah.
And Patrick Swayze.
Patrick Swayze, yeah.
And Ghost. Yeah. And you make the pottery, and then you decorate however they're going to do it,
right.
And then we'll do the show afterwards.
Right.
And he said, well, what's in it for you? I said, no, we want to pay you to do the pottery. We want the experience, and you're a brand new company. You started last October. We want to help spread the word. Well, what's in it for you? A hunk of pottery. That's pretty much it. And that's what we do. When I was on with John Landecker, he was talking about a story about a advertising executive in Chicago, been there forever. His name is William Birnbach. I don't expect you to know that name.
Okay.
I did not know that name. They were interviewing him. There's some big anniversary or something. And he says, what do you attribute your success to? Because you're an advertising agency. You're always put under the microscope of do better, do more creative than you did for the other client. And here's the quote. I always find something interesting to say and say it in an interesting way. He says, if I can accomplish those two things, I've done my work for the client. And I've laminated that and kept it in my wallet.
Kept it in your wallet there, yeah.
Because I need it to be a reminder all the time. If you have the desire, you find those projects, whether it be movies or books or podcasts or public speaking or teaching a class, you find those avenues. That's what I believe.
Right, exactly.
Or you sit on the couch and you watch another episode of Seinfeld. Which a lot of people do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
now, this has been a treat. I really and truly love sharing stories like this. You know, just being on the radio and being able to do something I've loved all my life. I knew I wanted to do this, and I really and truly thank God and for the opportunity to do this. I think the patience of this lovely lady to my left over here, she's been very patient with it. She's been the most encouraging person when it comes to not going back on the radio, but doing what you want to do and enjoying it and purely just helping others.
And I think that thank God part that you said has a big impact because I think that life is a chess move. And if God helps you put people in the place where you guys can intersect, whoever those guys are, then that's half your battle right there. You know, there's a reason why that person had Cliff come over, because he could have not.
Yeah, I know.
And he says, you guys got to meet these other people. And then, you know, after that, we could have never talked to each other after that. And after that, you could have said no 2 days ago when I said, hey, let's meet in Merrillville. There's a lot of opportunities where you could say no, but you go, why not?
Yeah, we had freezing rain this morning. It's like, no, I'm going to do this.
I've been through worse.
Oh, I know.
I've been through worse.
It's just a delight. And there's numerous times I've been to the radio station, and my relief didn't show up because of bad weather, you know. And next thing you know, you're doing your 8th hour in a row.
Yeah, so you know how it feels.
You're getting a little crispy.
That's right.
Well, I should have been out of here. I'm starving here, and I don't have any quarters for the vending machine.
Wow, good for you guys for having a vending machine.
Well, yeah.
Wow, there's stations where I've been where they don't. You bring whatever you have.
Yeah, and one thing that we always had, which was a common bond with every radio station I've ever worked at, was the communal refrigerator.
Oh, yeah.
Which we used to refer to as Hotel California, because things check in, but they never check out.
Nice. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, keep in mind, this is a podcast that this audio file is going to be posted and uploaded on 2 podcasts. One is Someone You Should Know by Rick Anthony, and the other is Storyteller Studio with Tim Larson. That's what we have done today, and we're going to sort of double dip.
Yeah. Mine will be out in March, and
mine will be out next week.
All right, very good. Awesome.
Well, let's have some lunch here at
All
Maxim's.
Right, very good. I think these lovely ladies are kind of wondering, when are these guys going to shut up so I can have my breakfast?
Thanks, Rick. I appreciate it.
Thanks, brother. Really and truly loved it. And once again, positive vibes. Have a great trip, and have some fun. And thanks again for having me on your show.
I will. Thanks for accepting. Take care.
Saturday at noon Eastern Time on the DJ Hall of Fame.
John Records, Land Record.
I've been rewound.
Rewound Radio.
Hi, Rick Anthony here. I had a chance to interview some great folks on my Someone You Should Know podcast, heard around the world. One of the most interesting folks I've spoken with has been John Records Landecker. Well, here's some good news. John will be featured on the Rewound Radio DJ Hall of Fame the last 2 weekends of March. You will hear unscoped recordings of John from Michigan, Philadelphia, Toronto, Cleveland, and of course the Big 89, WLS, and other stations in Chicago. As part of the fun, we'll include some segments from my recent podcast with John, just to give some additional context to the special. Don't miss it. John Records Landecker, March 23rd and March 30th, from noon until 3 Eastern Time on Rewound Radio, where it's not how old it is, it's how good it is. Part 1 is coming up this Saturday at noon Eastern Time.
Rewound Radio, DJ Hall